The $2 million and the house will go to Anna. All right. After all, you're just an outsider. Am I really an outsider? Well, you're more like extended family, I guess. It's fine, right? You've got your job. But Anna's got nothing. If I'm gone, she won't be able to support herself. Plus, it's Anna who stayed with me all this time since I got out of the hospital. So I want everything I have to go to Anna. She's the one who's been here for me. My husband Ethan had an accident and now needs full-time care. I was ready to step up and help him with his daily life, but Ethan made the decision to move in his sister, Anna, who had just gone through a divorce and was unemployed. He wanted Anna to take care of him. That's why Anna came to live with us. But the truth was, Anna didn't really help with anything. She didn't take care of Ethan or the house. On top of that, Ethan just spoiled her. In the end, it only made my load heavier. And before I knew it, I was acting as the housekeeper for both of them. Now here we are. Ethan, who's been given a month to live, suddenly says he wants to leave everything to Anna. But I know the real story. Well, I see. Then I guess it's time for a divorce. I didn't want to get caught up in any more drama, so I decided to take Ethan's offer and divorce him. I'm Maggie. I'm 34 years old, and I work in an office. My husband, Ethan, runs a construction business. He has connections with some major construction companies, so his company is pretty well known. Ethan is 36, still young, but he's running a big company because he inherited it from his father, Kevin. This company was founded by Ethan's grandfather, and for years, Kevin ran it. But now that Kevin's in his late 60s, he retired last year, and Ethan took over the business. Because Ethan's so young, people often say he's lacking in experience. Still, Ethan doesn't let that get to him. He works hard every day, putting in long hours and studying to prove himself to everyone around him. He doesn't even take weekends off. Because of that, we barely spend any quality time together as a couple. To be honest, we've only been married for 2 years, so I'd really like to spend more time with him. And given my age, I'm starting to feel a little anxious about having children. Since Ethan was working so hard, I didn't want to burden him with how I felt. I decided to wait until things settled down at work, and when he had some free time, we could have a proper conversation. However, while I was waiting, a huge incident happened that made it impossible for us to talk things over in a calm way. One day, while I was at work, as usual, I received a phone call from the hospital. Wait, Ethan. I was stunned when I saw Ethan lying in a hospital bed. Ethan had been hit by a truck while he was out for work. The driver had been distracted by his smartphone and wasn't looking at the road ahead, and the truck had been speeding. Ethan had been hit and was badly injured, with broken arms and legs, and his whole body was wrapped in bandages. Some of the bandages were stained with blood, and the severity of the accident and the pain of his injuries were all too clear just from looking at him. Ethan, who had sustained such serious injuries, was unconscious, quietly lying in bed. It almost seemed like he was just catching up on the sleep he had missed while working so much. It turned out that Ethan had also sustained a serious head injury during the accident. He had been thrown from the truck, and his temple had slammed into the concrete ground. The doctors said they couldn't predict when he might wake up. He might never wake up, they told me. At that moment, I should have been in despair, but I only partially believed what the doctors said. I knew that doctors often communicate the worst-case scenario. They tell you a prognosis like, you have 1 year left to live, so that if the patient dies sooner, the family won't blame them for giving false hope. A nurse friend of mine had told me this before. I firmly believed Ethan would wake up, so I continued to visit him every day. Ethan. Ethan. 1 week after the accident, Ethan opened his eyes. He didn't seem to understand what had happened to him, and when I called his name, he just looked at me with a confused expression. Wait a minute, I'll go get the doctor. Ethan didn't respond to me and continued to look at me with that puzzled expression. I was concerned about his reaction, but I left the room to find the doctor. I was relieved that the worst-case scenario, where he would never wake up, had been avoided. But when I heard the doctor's explanation, I realized the situation was not as good as I'd hoped. It was a result that was about 3 steps below the worst-case scenario. Look, I bought you an electronic memo. Oh, sorry, you can't hear me. Right, just wait a second. I gestured wait to Ethan, and then showed him the electronic memo I had bought. Writing down, I bought this. Ethan nodded slightly and responded to my writing. Ethan had lost his hearing in both ears due to the accident. It seemed he had developed some hearing impairment. Since Ethan couldn't hear, we started communicating through gestures and writing. Ethan could still speak, but he began to use writing to communicate as well. He became concerned about his pronunciation and whether his speech was correct since he couldn't hear himself. From this point on, our conversations would all be through written notes. I've been writing on paper until now, but it's kind of inconvenient, right? So I bought this electronic memo. It's really handy. You can write on it just like using a tablet with a stylus. And if you press this button, it clears everything instantly. This is great. It's thin, so I won't need to go out and buy notebooks all the time or stock up on them. Thanks. Ethan showed me the memo and gave a small smile. But then he quickly erased the words and wrote, "Sorry," with a sad look on his face. What are you talking about? We're married, so it's only natural that we support each other when things get tough, right? And if anything happens to me, you better help me out too. I smiled brightly and showed him the memo with my words written on it. Inside, I really just wanted to cry, trembling and letting all my anxiety and fear take over. But if I did that, I knew Ethan would be overwhelmed by his own fears and anxieties. So I hid my negative emotions and tried to act upbeat. A month later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital and finally came home. I'm going out to buy some things. Anything you need. Beer's almost gone, so pick up some, please. Got it. I'll be back soon, so hold down the fort while I'm gone. I'm not a kid. Ethan still hadn't learned sign language, so after his discharge, we continued to communicate through writing. Also, since he couldn't hear, he needed assistance with daily activities. But although rehab was necessary, he could still move his body just fine, so the caregiving wasn't too difficult. Our life slowly started to return to normal. However, as things started to settle down, new problems began to arise. It's looking like it's going to be hard to keep working. Yay, it's unfortunate, but it can't be helped. I feel bad for all the trouble and worry I've caused. That's what being married is about, right? Don't worry about it. When I smiled, Ethan looked a little relieved and gave a small smile in return. Even though Ethan had lost his hearing, he had still wanted to keep working. But once he realized how difficult that would be, he decided to quit his job. I feel bad for Grandpa and Dad, but I've decided to sell the company. Dad is okay with it. I see. That might actually be better. But I wish you'd consulted with me before you made the decision to sell it. Sorry. There were some strict limitations around the company sale, so I couldn't talk about it easily. I didn't know that. I'm sorry for troubling you. No, it's me who's troubling you. So what are you going to do after you leave the company? I've still got rehab to do, so I'm going to take it easy for a while. After that, I'll look for work I can do, even if I can't hear. What kind of work would that be? I've heard that people who are deaf sometimes work as illustrators or programmers' jobs where there's less communication with words. But I don't have those skills. In fact, I don't even know what I can do right now. So I'll have to start by figuring out what I'm capable of. Maybe you should learn sign language too. Sign language, huh? It seems like it'd be a hassle to learn it now. Ethan's expression, which had been so dark in the hospital, was starting to brighten. It seemed like he was becoming more positive about life moving forward. After a little while, Ethan sold the company and immediately started investing. Actually, he'd probably started investing a bit before selling the company. Once the company was sold, he would have received a lump sum of money. And investing could be done through messages on a computer. It seemed that, after considering what he could do, Ethan decided to go into investing. Becoming an investor and finding his own work seemed to have made Ethan even brighter. Let's go out for dinner tonight. I found this restaurant on social media that serves some amazing-looking meat. I really want to go there again. And it's one of those expensive places, huh? Come on, it's fine. Just take me there. All right, all right. Ethan's work seemed to be going well. He was also enjoying the things he hadn't been able to do before due to his constant work. As a result, Ethan had started spending more money than before. It felt like he might be indulging a little too much, but as long as Ethan was happy and healthy, I don't mind if he spoiled himself. With that, Ethan's work and his bright outlook seemed to be back on track. Life was gradually stabilizing, or so I thought, until a small incident occurred that would change our lives dramatically. What happened? I just twisted my ankle a little. When I came home from work, Ethan was sitting on the living room sofa, rotating his ankle to stretch it out. I had continued working even after Ethan lost his hearing. Originally, I had planned to quit my job and support Ethan's daily life, but Ethan opposed that idea. You like working, right? You don't need to quit. But if I do that, you'll be alone at home. I'll stay home and work quietly until you come back. Don't worry about me. Then how about we get visiting care? It's just my ears that are the problem. I'm fine other than that. You don't have to be so overprotective. You've started treating me like a kid. I try to let Ethan do things his way as much as possible. So although I was a little worried, I decided to accept Ethan's proposal. This time it was just a sprained ankle. But what if it's a serious injury next time? I'll still quit my job and stay with you. Stop treating me like a kid. Then let's use visiting care. I don't want strangers taking care of me. How about this? When I heard Ethan's suggestion, I crossed my arms and furrowed my brow, thinking deeply. His proposal was something I initially couldn't accept. However, I didn't want to lose the brightness that had returned to Ethan, so I decided to go along with it for now, setting a 3-year limit. Maggie, it's been a while. Thank you for everything you've done for Ethan. Oh, I didn't do much. Ethan does everything on his own, so I'm not sure how helpful I've been. That's not true. Ethan definitely appreciates your help. By the way, where's my room? A few days later, Ethan's sister, Annie, arrived at our house, dragging a large suitcase behind her. Her furniture and bigger items had already been delivered and placed in the room she'd be using. Anna set her suitcase down by the front door and hurriedly went to check her room. Ethan's proposal was that Anna would live with us and help him with his daily life. Anna, 32 years old, had just gone through a divorce. After marrying, she had quit her job to become a housewife, and now she was unemployed. In exchange for taking care of her living expenses, she would assist with Ethan's daily needs. Her role could be described as something like a housekeeper. I was a little hesitant about living with Anna, but it seemed like she quickly agreed to Ethan's plan. Ethan, I'm here. Oh, I need to write. When Anna walked into the living room and saw Ethan, his face softened. Seeing that expression, I thought to myself, well, it's just a 3-year agreement. I guess it's okay. And accepted Ethan's proposal. However, living with Anna started to change my life in a very negative way. Maggie, you're home. Hey, I'm back. Wait, the dishes. I was busy helping Ethan with his work today, so I didn't get a chance to clean up lunch. Could you wash those for me? Ethan said he wanted to go out for dinner once you're done, so hurry up. When I returned home from work, the sink was piled high with dirty dishes and pans. Anna was supposed to help with the housework, too. However, I didn't mind helping with the dishes, but Anna was sitting on the living room sofa, watching TV. There were even drinks on the table, and it was clear she hadn't just sat down. Anna was supposed to be here to help Ethan with his needs and assist with housework, but it didn't seem like she was doing either. I had no time to rest after a tiring day at work and had to get the dishes done first. Are you finally done? All right, I'll go get Ethan. Get the car ready. After finishing the dishes, the next task was getting the car ready. At this point, I wasn't sure who was supporting Ethan and doing the housework. Soon after, Ethan and Anna came out of the house, both smiling. It seemed like Anna was just accompanying Ethan, and he appeared to be fine with it. Ethan was smiling, and he seemed brighter than before. But I couldn't help but wonder, was this really okay? 1 week after Anna had moved in, I decided to directly confront her about my concerns. Anna, every time I come home, the dishes are still there, and you haven't cleaned once this week. You haven't even gone shopping. And when it's time for dinner, Ethan suggests going out instead of you cooking. When we don't eat out, I'm the one cooking. You're supposed to help with the housework and support Ethan, right? What? Are you saying I haven't done anything? I've been helping Ethan while you're at work. I'm really busy. Why are you saying this to me? No, I'm not saying you've done nothing. I'm willing to help with Ethan and the house, too. But I just feel like I need a bit more help from you. I wouldn't mind if this is from Ethan. But why are you saying all this to me? Anna glared at me sharply and walked off to her room. I cleaned up the drink she had left on the living room table. I hadn't seen what Anna was doing around the house while I was at work, but I couldn't help feeling that she wasn't doing as much as she claimed when it came to supporting Ethan and taking care of the house. I could tell what was going on around the house just by looking at the dishes, the state of the fridge, and the rooms. Ethan would also ask me for favors like, "Can you buy this?" Or "Could you take care of this for me?" And when I came home from work, it wasn't uncommon for neither of them to be around while I came back carrying bags of groceries. It felt like I had 2 big kids at home. It was time to remind both Ethan and Anna of the reasons and promises for which they came to live here. So I decided to have a conversation with them. But the response I got from Ethan was something I never expected. "I heard you said something awful to Anna. She was really mad. Why can't you two get along, especially since we're living together?" What? Why? Am I the one in the wrong? Is it really such a big mistake that I told Anna she should be doing more around the house? It's obvious that you're the one in the wrong. You tried to push everything onto Anna, my needs, and the housework. I wasn't trying to push anything on her. I just thought that since we're living together, she should at least help out with the basics. She just got divorced, and she's mentally exhausted. You need to be more considerate. Well, I guess you're right. Ethan looked at me with sharp eyes, and then showed me a note. I started feeling like maybe I was the one who was wrong. Anna's divorce was only about 6 months ago. I had assumed that her emotional wounds would be healed by now. But as Ethan said, mental recovery takes different amounts of time for everyone. It seemed that Anna was still unstable, and perhaps I had been too harsh with her. Maybe I needed to give her more time until she calmed down. A year passed. Welcome home. Could you get dinner ready soon? Anna's attitude had only gotten worse. When I came home from work, she was once again lying on the sofa, watching TV. She hadn't changed position since the morning. The only difference was that there were empty snack and bread wrappers scattered around things that hadn't been there in the morning. Anna now spent almost the entire day on the living room sofa. It had become her nest. The only times she left it were to use the bathroom, take a shower, or go out with Ethan. And since Anna scattered things around faster than I could clean up, the house was getting dirtier by the day. Did you finally get back? Where's dinner? Stop taking your time with the dishes and make dinner already. When Ethan came into the kitchen, he started demanding dinner just like Anna had. If they were so eager to eat, at least they could soak the lunch dishes while they waited. Ethan was still on Anna's side. I had essentially become the housekeeper for both Ethan and Anna. Next week, Anna and I are going on a trip. My suitcase is old, so buy me a new one by next week. A trip? What about me? Look at this mess around the house. It's dirty, right? You've been slacking off lately. While we're gone, you can clean up. It'll be easier for you to get things done without us around. So this trip is actually for you. You should be grateful. The way Ethan and Anna were treating me became more and more careless, and I slowly began to lose my sense of purpose in this house. It had been a year and a half since Anna moved in. Hey, Ethan, I want a new bag. Could you buy it for me? Ethan smiled and gave me a thumbs up, signaling that it was okay. At this point, I felt like I was nothing more than air in this house. My life was still the same like a housekeeper. It seemed like my existence was no longer needed here. Being ignored and made to feel like I had no value really took a toll on my mental state. While Ethan became brighter and more energetic, I found myself losing energy and becoming increasingly apathetic. As my heart grew colder, thoughts of divorce began to flicker in my mind. Then one day, an event occurred that would have a major impact on our lives. Maggie, could you sit down for a minute? When I came home from work, Anna had a rare serious expression on her face. Ethan, also with a grim look, was sitting next to her. Curious about what was going on, I sat down on the couch. Then Anna placed a piece of paper on the table. What's this? It's a copy of Ethan's medical records. He's been having headaches and nausea, so I took him to the doctor. I didn't know you could get a copy of the records. With privacy laws now, if you request it, they'll give you a copy of your medical records, she explained. So I got one for you. Okay, but why did you go through the trouble of getting a copy of his records? Was there something with a complicated name that he couldn't remember? No, it's not that. I just wanted you to believe me, that I'm not lying to you. Believe you. What do you mean? Look here. 1 month to live, and pointed to part of the medical record. Looking at it, I saw it clearly stated that Ethan had been given a prognosis of 1 month to live. I was stunned. I picked up the medical record in disbelief. Ethan fractured his skull in the accident, right? Apparently, that's what caused him to develop bacterial meningitis. That accident was over a year and a half ago. How could something from that long ago cause this now? It's possible with this illness. I can't believe this. I dropped the medical record in shock. To be honest, I had been harboring resentment toward Ethan and Anna, and was already thinking about divorce. But this wasn't the ending I had imagined. I summoned all the courage I had and looked at Ethan. Though his face was somber, he didn't look like someone who only had 1 month to live. I assumed that the 1 month prognosis was the worst case scenario. It didn't necessarily mean he would die in exactly 1 month. There are people who are told they have 1 year to live and end up living for more than 10 years. However, being given a prognosis of 1 month to live meant that he was in a critical state and could deteriorate at any moment. The reality of human life hit me like a slap, and I felt my body begin to tremble in fear. Anna picked up the medical record that had fallen to the floor and gave me a lonely look. "Maggie, I'm sorry, but could you leave us alone for a while? We need to talk as a family." Ethan nodded quietly at Anna's request. Apparently, someone like me who wasn't blood-related wasn't considered part of the family. I couldn't bear the mix of anxiety, fear, and sadness that overwhelmed me. I felt like I was going to break if I thought about it any longer. So I decided to leave the house for a few days, not thinking about anything. I packed my things into a suitcase that I had bought for Ethan's trip and headed for a hotel. However, just 5 minutes after leaving the house, I realized I had forgotten my work bag. I dragged my suitcase and returned home for a moment. The front door was left wide open. I didn't think about it and just entered the house. Then I heard voices coming from the back of the house. I thought Anna might be on the phone, so I quietly entered to avoid disturbing her. As I walked down the hallway, I could clearly hear Anna's voice. I listened to their conversation and was hit with an overwhelming shock. They'd been lying to me all along, but in the next moment, anger began to rise within me. However, expressing that anger here wouldn't be a good idea. I tightened my stomach to hold back my anger and quietly left the house. 3 days later, I received a message from Ethan saying, "We need to talk." I returned home. "Maggie, could you sit down?" When I entered the house, Ethan and Anna were sitting on the living room sofa. Just like 3 days ago, it seemed like Anna was the one leading the conversation, not Ethan, who couldn't hear. "We talked, and Ethan and I both think you should divorce him," Anna said. "Why?" "Because Ethan only has 1 month to live, right? If you stay with him, you'll just get caught up in the mess. So I think it's better to break up now." "But what about the division of assets? Ethan is an investor and has a lot of money, right? Plus, this house was bought when Ethan was running his company." "About that, I think Ethan should explain it directly." Ethan began writing on an electronic memo pad. It seemed as though he had already decided what to write. When he finished, he thrust the memo in front of my face. "The compensation from the accident, the money from selling the company, the investment earnings, and the $2M in inheritance, as well as the house, are all going to Anna." "All right, you're not family." "I'm not family." "Well, you are family. But compared to Anna, who's blood-related, our bond is weaker, right? So you're more like an extended family member. Is that okay? You've got your job, but Anna will have nothing once I'm gone. She'll struggle to survive. Plus, Anna stayed by my side after she got out of the hospital. That's why I want to leave everything to Anna." Both Ethan and Anna had serious expressions, but I knew their expressions were just an act. I see. Then I'll agree to the divorce." Are you sure? What's wrong? Shouldn't we divorce?" "It's not that. I'm just surprised you agreed so quickly. I've had 3 days to think about it. I've considered things. Like Anna said, if Ethan and I stayed together, it would definitely cause more trouble. So today, I'm ready to go through with the divorce. I've even brought the divorce papers. I've signed them already, Ethan. Could you sign them too?" "Of course, I won't ask for any of the assets." I placed the divorce papers on the table. Ethan gave a sly grin for just a moment before quickly putting on a serious expression again, and then signed the papers. Once he finished, I quickly snatched the papers back. "Okay, I'll take care of submitting this divorce application. The acting is over. You can hear, right? The 1-month prognosis was a lie. I know it's a lie. You added text to the copy of the medical record from the hospital and made a new copy. So it didn't look suspicious, didn't you? Ethan let out a slight gasp at my words. His face went from shocked to pretending to be serious again. It's not a big deal. I could always talk. The only problem is my hearing. Yay, but even though you could talk, you refused to learn sign language and continued to use written notes, right? That was so you could drastically reduce the chances of me overhearing, right? Without conversation, there's less chance of me discovering the truth. Maggie, what are you talking about? Anna, you knew Ethan could hear, didn't you? I overheard you two talking 3 days ago. 3 days ago. The day you left the house. Then the conversation you heard was about. It was about the plan to not give me a penny from the division of assets. Ethan, when you regained consciousness after the accident, you really couldn't hear, right? So they did all sorts of tests, like listening to sounds with headphones, measuring brain waves when hearing sounds, and all the tests for hearing loss. They diagnosed you with hearing loss, right? But that was temporary, wasn't it? You gradually started hearing again, but you kept quiet about it, didn't you? The hearing impairment tests are tricky because they depend on the doctor's judgment, so you really overheard our conversation. It seems like you can finally hear me. You were happy when you got diagnosed with hearing loss because it gave you a reason to quit your job, right? Then you easily sold the company, right? With the money from the sale, the insurance, and the compensation, you were going to live comfortably. But then, with $2M from your investments, you thought you could divorce me and become even more free, right? If I'm around, you'd have to keep pretending you couldn't hear. That's right. It's a hassle to keep pretending I can't hear. But if I told you the truth, you'd spill it to everyone, right? Of course, I would. It's wrong. So you chose Anna as your accomplice. Anna didn't come here to support you or help with the housework. She was here to weaken my mental state, make me accept the divorce, and get me to agree to forego the division of assets. Right after your little plan succeeded, Anna was supposed to get a $200K reward, wasn't she? That's right. You agreed to the divorce and said you didn't need anything from the assets. Now you can't take it back. I let out a heavy sigh. Ethan seemed too excited, thinking he didn't need to split the $2M, losing his composure. You know, I overheard your conversation 3 days ago. Do you think I did nothing during that time? Wait, did you tell anyone? Are you already telling people? I'll keep pretending I can't hear, just like before. I was diagnosed with hearing loss, so as long as I don't get retested, I can say whatever I want. Too bad for you. I recorded your conversation. I've already taken the recording to the hospital and the police. The hospital and the police. If you've been receiving insurance payments and disability benefits while knowing you could hear, that could be considered fraud. If you don't want to be charged with fraud, you'll have to prove that you really can't hear. But that means they'll ask for a retest, right? And if the truth comes out and you're charged with fraud, they'll probably ask you to pay back all the money you've received. Wait. If they make me pay it back, I'll have to return a huge sum. But you've got $2M now, so even if you pay it back, you'll still have plenty left, right? You don't need to give Maggie any of it, so it's fine. Do you think there will still be money left? What do you mean by that? I've already informed the company you sold about this. They asked me when you started investing. I was asked lots of questions. Wait, did you tell them everything? Of course. What's the problem with investing? Ethan's company was sold, and it merged with another company. I'm not an expert, but I know that when that happens, stock prices tend to rise. knowing that the company was going to merge and that the stock prices would rise. Buying stock beforehand seems like a smart move. That's called insider trading. It's illegal. How much did you sell your stock for? $1. 7M. That amount. You poured all of it into the company sale, the accident compensation money, everything. You knew it would grow, so of course you did it, but putting in too much was your mistake. I don't understand. Are you saying Ethan's earnings from stocks are going to be taken away? When insider trading is discovered, it's not just the profit that gets confiscated, but the amount he sold the shares for. So not just the profits, but also the money he used to buy the stocks gets taken back. So you mean $1. 7M is going to be seized? Exactly. The money that's being reclaimed will be returned. The money he invested will be fully recovered. And that $2M is gone. He spent a lot, but can he pay it all back? This could end up as debt. He's going to have to deal with a lot of people now. Lucky me, I got to divorce you before all this. If I get caught up in a mess like this, it'd be such a hassle. Wait, what about my $200K? Ethan might end up in debt, right? He won't be able to pay you. Are you kidding me? I've been living here for a year and a half because he promised me that $200K. What's going on with Ethan? You better pay me the full $200K. Ethan, already certain he's about to lose $2M, slumped, with his body completely drained of energy. Anna grabbed him by the collar, shaking his body roughly back and forth. As for me, as long as I got that divorce petition back, I was fine. I figured Ethan and Anna could sort things out between themselves. I left the house, making sure to flaunt the divorce papers in front of them. After that, I divorced Ethan. Ethan was bombarded with demands to return money from insurance companies, the person responsible for the accident, the government, and more. His $1. 7M from insider trading was also seized. In the end, since he had already spent most of the money, he couldn't cover the costs with what he had left and ended up selling the house. Ultimately, Ethan was left with just $20K. It's still a pretty decent amount, but compared to the $2M he once had, it's almost nothing. What's worse, Anne reportedly said, "Give me all of it." If that happened, Ethan, with no house and no job, would be completely stuck. So Ethan suggested, "I'll give you half." But Anna wouldn't accept that, and a nasty argument broke out. In the end, they agreed to split the remaining money evenly, but their family bond was likely shattered. I moved into an apartment and continued working. Ethan seemed to be scrambling to handle everything, but my life had not changed much at all. In a way, I guess you could call it a kind of elegance. Now that I don't have to be a housekeeper anymore, I plan to enjoy a more relaxed lifestyle while continuing to work for a while.
Call the police! I had saved $300,000 for my retirement. But for some reason, it vanished when my eldest son moved out. While my second son is arranging for the police, I contacted my eldest son. Then he yelled at me. "Stop it!" I was shocked, but I had already reported it to the police. My name is Susan. When I was young, I moved to New York City to work, and I had 2 sons. Both my sons are now 18 years old, and my husband passed away early. I've reached 60 and retired. I had saved $300,000 for my retirement, so I'm not too worried about living expenses. Still, it's time to think about my future living arrangements. During this time, my eldest son Robert, who had always lived in our parents' house, decided to move out. Robert's wife, Mary, had expressed her dissatisfaction to my eldest son, saying that she didn't want to take care of me in the past. I had expected this conversation someday. I have no desire to be looked after by my eldest son's wife. In fact, my eldest son's wife can't even cook or do household chores, so I've been doing it for both of them all along. Have you found a place yet? Not yet, but we plan to decide soon. Let me know when the move is settled. Richard and the others say they will take me on a trip to celebrate my retirement soon. Understood. I'm saving money now, and I'll leave once I have enough. I reported my eldest son's situation to my second son over the phone. My second son said, "In that case, how about installing security cameras? Without Robert around, you might be an easy target for burglars." That's true. I've heard on the news that seniors living alone are often targeted. Moreover, the trip I'm taking with my second son and his wife is a bit longer this time. I was certainly anxious about leaving the house empty for an extended period. I quickly purchased the security cameras that my second son had researched for me. They should arrive tomorrow. Little did I know, they would come in handy later. Sometime after hearing about my eldest son and his wife moving out, my eldest son's wife approached me about moving expenses. "Mother-in-law, could we borrow a little money for our moving expenses? I've actually been let go from my part-time job. Without some help, we won't have enough for the move." Fired from a part-time job. What on earth did you do? "Mother-in-law, please, lend us the money." Upon my eldest son's wife's desperate plea, I reluctantly agreed and gave her the money for moving and enough to live on for a while. "Make sure you pay it back." "Yes." She always responds well. But that's about it, I thought, criticizing my eldest son's wife inwardly, as I considered talking to my eldest son. A few days passed. My eldest son seemed uninterested in preparing for the move, so I asked him about it. Then, I came to know a shocking truth. "I lent the moving expenses to Mary the other day, so shouldn't you be able to move now?" "Huh? I didn't know about that." "What?" I was shocked and opened my eyes wide. "She said she'd pay it back after moving, didn't she?" "I don't know about that." "How much did you lend her?" "About $3,000. "What? There's no way we can pay that back. I'm a temporary worker, you know." "But Mary said she needed the loan." I couldn't hide my surprise. Just then, my eldest son's wife came home. I hurried to the entrance and confronted her about what she had done with the moving money. "I'm sorry, I spent it." "But you have money, mother-in-law, so $3,000 isn't a big deal, right?" "That's not the point at all. What on earth did you spend it on?" "Designer bags and new clothes. The new ones were so cute. But I can't spend money until I find a part-time job." "Don't worry, I'll pay you back as soon as I find part-time work." Little by little, I was at a loss for words at my eldest son's wife's statement. "I've retired, so I need that money back. You understand that, don't you?" "I understand, so quit nagging." Is this what they call wife bullying? I just want to leave this house as soon as possible. My eldest son's wife just kept saying whatever she wanted. I regretted lending her the money and wondered why I had done so. Today, my second son Richard was scheduled to come home. Richard has a 1-year-old child, and his wife, Beth, is a hard worker, currently on maternity leave. He had promised to take me on a trip next time, so we were planning to decide on the dates. Since my eldest son hadn't returned from his temp job yet, it was just me and my eldest son's wife at home. "Mary, Richard, and the others are coming today. Can you help me out?" "Me? Huh? I can't cook or anything." I just got my nails done the other day. Well, can you set the plates or do the shopping? Richard and the others are coming for lunch. You like Richard more than Robert, don't you, mother-in-law? That's not true. I just want to spend some quality time since it's been a while since we've seen them. When I said that, my eldest son's wife had a clearly dissatisfied look on her face. I don't intend to favor one brother over the other, but since it's been a while since we've seen each other, it's natural to give a little preferential treatment. Although my eldest son's wife has some challenges in her personality, I have never compared her to Beth. Though that's the case, my eldest son's wife doesn't like my second son's wife and always takes a confrontational attitude. When my second son and his wife arrived at the house, my eldest son's wife stared at my second son's wife. Wearing something plain again today? Can't you put a little effort into it? Especially in front of mother-in-law. It's frustrating how she says things to elevate me, things she's never even thought of herself. Don't worry about it, she's just in a bad mood. I try to provide support with those words, but my second son's wife looks down, appearing apologetic. My second son's wife is always bullied by my eldest son's wife like this. I try my best to defend my second son's wife, but it seems my eldest son's wife doesn't like that either. When I return to the kitchen, I admonish my eldest son's wife. Mary, can't you get along with Beth a little better? I do want to get along, but I just don't like that gloomy woman. Mother-in-law, please stop favoring her over me. I don't intend to. Is it because she has a grandchild? I'm certainly happy about the grandchild, but that's not why I would favor her. My eldest son's wife glances at me and snorts dismissively. I wonder if she understands. Why don't you let that woman help with this? Beth has to take care of the child too. I knew it. You favor her because she has a grandchild. My eldest son's wife says this, starts to sulk, and begins to relax with a drink, refusing to help with anything. I wanted to say that she's not a child, but I held back and let my eldest son's wife have her way. After a while, I heard the sound of my eldest son's wife arguing with my second son and his wife. Rushing over, I found my eldest son's wife, drunk, trying to grab at my second son's wife. My second son was desperately trying to stop her. What on earth are you doing? I just can't stand this woman. So what if she has a child? You think she's making fun of me? Then, my second son's wife apologized, looking guilty. I didn't realize that my sister-in-law was so bothered. I showed pictures of Emma and... You don't have to apologize. Mary's the one acting strangely. She suddenly got angry and tried to grab Beth. Putting their stories together, it seemed that the origin of the matter was my eldest son's wife teasing my second son and his wife. The story was that the eldest son's wife, fueled by alcohol, had become furious when the second son's wife remained silent in response to her incomprehensible complaints. What's wrong? I'm not in the wrong. I don't like this woman or my mother-in-law. I've decided to move out, and I feel relieved. My eldest son's wife screamed, starting to throw any dishes or glasses within her reach. I quickly moved my second son's wife and grandson away from her, while my second son desperately tried to restrain his wife. Then, my eldest son came home and was stunned to see the disastrous state of the room. My second son and his wife had come to visit after a long time, and now this. Later, my eldest son took charge of his wife, and the situation temporarily calmed down. As we cleaned up the messy room, my second son's wife looked apologetic. There had been arguments since my second son and his wife came to the house, but the travel plans were safely arranged. My second son and his wife left with smiles on their faces, and just when I was feeling relieved, my eldest son called me into the living room. By the way, my eldest son's wife had become drunk and fallen asleep. We've decided to move out earlier. We'll leave next weekend. What? Is money going to be okay? What about the house? Mary said she'll handle it. I want to keep the moving costs down, so I'd like you and Richard to help us. That's fine, but Richard left earlier. We'll have to contact him. Can you reach out to him for me? It's hard for me to ask after what happened earlier. I understand. I agreed right away. Perhaps my eldest son's wife will feel a little more relaxed once she's away from this house. I had been thinking that maybe my eldest son's wife felt strange pressure because I was around. After the earlier dispute, I might not be able to see my eldest son and his wife, but I thought that if they could spend their time peacefully, it would be good. I called my second son and his wife, who had just returned home, and explained the situation. My second son and his wife agreed with my thoughts and gladly accepted to help with the move. And today was the day my eldest son and his wife were moving out. I watched the two of them leave and then returned to the living room. Actually, I was planning to go on a trip with my second son and his wife starting tomorrow. Thank you. I hope the two of them can finally settle down. It's all right. I really hope they can settle down. While my second son and his wife are taking a break with coffee and cookies, I return to my room and start preparing for the trip. If it's a trip, it will surely cost a lot of money. Thinking so, when I opened the chest with the banking card inside, I was stunned. This is terrible! As I rushed down to the living room, my second son and his wife looked at me, dumbfounded. The savings! The banking card I was saving for our retirement is gone. At my words, my second son and his wife's eyes widened in shock. A thief? When did this happen? What should we do? As I was panicking, my second son's wife hesitantly asked, how much was in it? $300,000. At my words, my second son and his wife were frozen. Call the police. It must be a thief. I yelled to my second son, and he hurriedly pulled out his mobile phone. Wait, what about my eldest son and his wife? They moved without knowing a thief had been in the house, so they might have trouble if something was missing. I called my eldest son. Robert! A thief! A thief was in our house. We didn't notice at all, but please check carefully when you unpack to make sure nothing was stolen. Huh? What do you mean? My banking card is gone. There was $300,000 in it. Surprised, my eldest son paused for a moment and then nervously uttered something to confirm. $300,000. Is that true? Yes, I've been saving it for retirement since Dad passed away. We're contacting the police now. As I desperately pleaded, my eldest son exclaimed, "What?" in an unusually loud voice. Wait, hold on. No. That is. As my eldest son panicked, my second son's wife turned the conversation to me. I know you're talking, but doesn't this house have security cameras? In the rooms? That's right. There was one in that room too. Shall we check it? Hearing this, I hurriedly pulled out the computer from the chest. I'm not familiar with the detailed use of a computer, but since using a mobile phone to view the security cameras was hard to remember, my second son gave me an old computer. I handed the computer to my second son's wife. After skillfully operating the computer, my second son's wife was shocked and speechless. I watched my second son's wife's reaction and, feeling suspicious, I peered into the screen, where I saw. At that moment, the voice of my eldest son, still on the line, echoed. No. Don't call the police. Mary might get falsely suspected. In shock and astonishment, I listened to my eldest son's desperate plea. 30 minutes later, my eldest son hurriedly drove back. Facing my eldest son and his wife, anger was slowly welling up inside me. Did you already call them? It's just a little misunderstanding. Let me explain. Please don't involve the police. I'm sorry, I've already reported it. More importantly, can you explain what's going on? As I said this, my eldest son looked apologetically at his wife, who ignored him without showing any sign of remorse. I felt anger towards my eldest son's wife. I heard this was given to me. But more than that, if you call the police, Mary will get caught. I'll return this. Can't you forgive us? My eldest son said this, handing me a banking card. It had already been used for moving expenses and apartment fees. This was what my eldest son's wife meant by somehow taking care of it. The security camera clearly showed my eldest son's wife taking the banking card from my chest. This is my retirement money. Why did you take it without asking? I was treated horribly here. I thought I'd keep it as a compensation. I've never treated you badly. I never forced anything on you, and you had 3 proper meals a day, didn't you? What exactly are you unhappy about? As I said this, my eldest son's wife's face turned red, and her eyes narrowed in anger. I've suffered more mental distress than Beth. Being called to the house on purpose, it felt like I was being told to show my grandchild, and it was painful. My eldest son's wife made such a delusional claim. I still couldn't forgive her. Stealing someone's belongings is what a thief does. Do you understand that? I lived in this house too, so it's also mine. Calling me a thief is just cruel. My eldest son's wife said this and began to cry. My eldest son begged me. Please forgive her. I beg you, Mom. Did they think I would forgive such a thing? I felt anger welling up even towards my irresponsible eldest son. Listening to the exchange between me and my eldest son's wife, my second son slammed the table and stood up. You've been saying whatever you like all this time. The second son glared at the eldest son's wife with an angry face. After all Mom has done for you, how can you act like this? As far as I can see, Mom has always been good to Mary. And Robert, too, you should tell her when something's wrong. She's your wife, isn't she? He shifted his angry gaze to the eldest son as well, who could only gulp and break into a cold sweat. It can't be helped. I didn't know. It's not about not knowing. Why weren't you watching properly? Because Robert isn't responsible, she acts however she wants. Besides, this is Mom's house, not Mary's. It's unimaginable that she could just take whatever she likes. The second son said this, pointing at the eldest son's wife. The eldest son's wife looked at the second son with a disgusted face. What's your problem? I'm Mama's boy. I'm the one who's wrong. That's rude for a brother-in-law. Of course it's wrong. You've been complaining about Beth all this time. Why does my wife have to be criticized by someone like you? You don't know how much Beth has been troubled by this. The second son's words seemed to have pressured the eldest son's wife, who looked away and hung her head. To calm the second son down, the second son's wife hastily speaks to him. The second son has cooled down a bit but still glared at the eldest son's wife. I'm sorry. It's true that I let Mary do whatever she wanted. And I had given up, thinking that even if I said something, it wouldn't be heeded. The eldest son said this, looking down. Take my side. The eldest son's wife demanded of the eldest son, but he just shook his head. How cruel! I thought you would support me. Just stop it. The fact is you did steal. When the eldest son said this, the eldest son's wife knocked a nearby vase off the table and turned away with an unhappy face. Suddenly, the police rushed in, looking alarmed. They must have been startled by the loud noise inside. They restrained the unruly eldest son's wife and turned to face us. I averted my eyes from the police, glancing quickly at the security camera. The police saw that and confirmed that the eldest son's wife had stolen the banking card before taking her into custody. Robert, say something! Help me! It's hopeless now. Why would you say that? You've been too selfish. I don't know why you did this. I can't defend you. The eldest son said this, looking away from his wife and hanging his head. Let's divorce. Upon hearing those words, the eldest son's wife stopped in shock, ceasing her resistance. Wait, Robert? Are you sure? I tried to warn her at first, but she never listened. She ignores me when things go wrong. And now this. I can't bear it anymore. I can't be her husband any longer. The eldest son was also in turmoil. I couldn't bring myself to blame the eldest son, knowing that. Perhaps it was because he was my son, even after all that had happened. The eldest son watched Mary being taken away by the police, then slumped down, disheartened. Later on, it was revealed that Mary had apparently committed marriage fraud as well. The eldest son found out and was once again shocked. Mary was told she couldn't escape a prison sentence. And so, the eldest son and his wife divorced. The eldest son's wife had to pay back the money from the marriage fraud and compensate the eldest son. The eldest son offered to take on some of the payment of the marriage fraud money. He said he wanted to settle things with himself, as he hadn't stopped his wife strongly enough. I went on a trip with my second son and his wife. Spending a long time with my young grandchildren was so much fun. Now, I am living with my eldest son again. He has a debt to pay off, so he's quitting his temp job and is working hard as a full-time employee, moving forward with determination. I'm happy to see my once unreliable eldest son growing little by little.